Hey Todd, any chance you could give me a thumbs up in the chat if you can hear me okay, please? Hey Mark, you may need to ask to join the stage.
Hello.
Hey Mark, you're coming through loud and clear, wonderful.
Awesome.
Discord settings can catch us out first time.
Yeah, especially with Mac, it allow you you need to reboot everything. Having a good day?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. How about you?
Good. Yeah. The sun is out today.
Not over here, it isn't. We've got weather warnings today.
That's pretty insane in UK.
Yeah.
That usually happen in the Caribbean or
Virtually unheard of over here.
that's it.
1987, people are comparing the storm today to.
Wow, I was not even born.
Oh, that's depressing. Welcome, everyone. We just give everyone a chance to join. Hey, Jeremy, how you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Yeah, good, thank you.
That storm causing problems?
Yeah, managed to lift the trampoline, which was quite exciting.
Yeah,
Not as exciting as Steak Wars, of course.
of course. How are you today, Mark?
Fantastic, always.
Hello, everyone on stage. Can you hear me well?
Hey, Daria. Yeah, you're coming through loud and clear. Just waiting for Nazar. Is he in the audience yet?
He's going to be here in a second. We were in the same meeting just before that.
Okay. It's going to build the suspense. Hey, Nazar.
Hey, folks.
Thanks for joining us. Okay, I think we've got everyone here. It's a minute past the hour, so Let's get into our Stake Wars kickoff call. So good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. I want to extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you joining us today. It's fantastic to see so many familiar faces as well as new members of our ever-growing community. We're thrilled to have you with us as we embark on a deep dive into the fascinating world of Subspace and the upcoming incentivized staking contest we've all been eagerly anticipating, Stake Wars. Today's call is not just an ordinary gathering, it's the confluence of minds, ideas, and a shared vision of advancing our network and taking a significant step forward in our collective journey. We've structured this call to ensure that every participant, whether you're a seasoned farmer or a newcomer, eager to learn about the roles of operators and nominators, leaves with a greater understanding and clear action points. We'll kick things off with a brief overview of decoupled execution and its pivotal role in how it contributes to us realizing our dream for the protocol. Daria will be referencing subjects detailed within the Subnomicon, which is the source of truth on our network architecture. This will lay the groundwork for understanding the key components and the innovative approach that sets Subspace apart in the blockchain universe. Then, we'll navigate the nuances that distinguish Gemini 3F from Gemini 3G and discuss the intricacies of the software that powers them with Nazar. We understand this segment will pack a lot of information, but rest assured, it's designed to bring clarity to the considerations a farmer switching from 3F to 3G needs to be aware of. This segment will culminate in the ongoing incentivized testnet rewards being stopped on Gemini 3F and being started on Gemini 3G. I imagine plenty of people in the audience here for that. I will then be covering the phases of Stake Wars in a bit more detail, including when those who want to become an operator need to be engaged, and then how our regular farmers who do not wish to run an operator are still able to get involved and earn additional rewards from the Stake Wars prize pool by participating as nominators. Jeremy will then give us some insight into the nuts and bolts of how exactly a community member is able to join the network as an operator and or nominator, all essential knowledge for participants who are keen to engage with the network on a deeper level. And to ensure we're all on the same page, Mark, one of our newer team members, will introduce our intuitive staking interface, which promises to streamline the user experience, making it accessible to everyone. And because we value your voice and your input, we'll wrap up with an open Q&A session where you're invited to bring forward any queries, insights, or discussions about the topics we've touched on. If any burning questions arise while our speakers are doing their thing, please do drop them in the chat and we'll use them to kickstart the conversation. So let's get started and delve into the mechanics and the magic of the Subspace network. And together, let's shape the future of decentralized storage and execution by kicking off phase 1 of Stake Wars. Without further ado, let's begin with our first agenda item. I'd like to introduce one of our wonderful researchers and my hackathon buddy, Daria. Would you like to take it away, Daria?
Thank you, Jim. Yeah, the hackathon was really cool. I wish we could do more of those, but we're too busy building Subspace now. I'm going to speak a little bit about what exactly is we're building. So as Jim already mentioned, in this phase of testnet, we will be extensively testing domains and operators functionality. So I'm just going to talk a little bit of what are those buzzwords that we've been saying a lot today. Up to now, in most of the testnets, the biggest thing that we've been testing, which is the core of our protocol, is farmers and farming, which are the people who pledge space and propose blocks on Subspace. But now we're going to be moving to testing. I mean, we're still going to be testing farming, but operators are a new layer on top of that. We will be encouraging everyone and interested developers to actually participate in testing. And before I get into what it is exactly that operators do, let's just quickly recap the architecture of the Subspace network. So Subspace in its core is a modular blockchain, and it's roughly divided into base layer like of the consensus chain and a bunch of secondary execution chains, which we call domains. So the consensus layer is the foundation, is the heart of everything, and it's responsible for achieving, well, consensus across all of the nodes that participate in the network. It ensures a single source of truth for the state of the blockchain and for the history of the chain. It ensures it's immutable, and it provides data availability through our new consensus, Dilithium, about which you can read also in our Hitchhiker's Guide on Medium. The chain data is then archived and distributed through the network of farmers, RDers, who store it and serve the blockchain history via the distributed storage network, the DSN, that also serves for sync of other nodes joining. Farmers are incentivized for the pledge that for the storage that they pledge through the block rewards and vote rewards that they get from the protocol and the storage fees of the transactions. Farming is entirely permissionless, and I want to say that again so nobody is confused. It requires no staking, it requires your SSD, your CPU, and the hardware requirements we try to keep as minimal as possible and do exactly what those are. You can always check the documentation on docs of subspace.network. On top of the consensus layer, we have introduced a decoupling of consensus and computation by separating the transaction execution into independent domains. So you can imagine domains as like secondary chains, as enshrined rollups, as up chains, whatever's the fashionable name for these things are, that are running parallel to the consensus chain independently of it. Each domain has its own operator set, and domains are responsible for executing transactions. So actually applying what it is the transaction brings the change to the state of the blockchain. And executing smart contract calls, executing applications, all of whatever you can build on them. Decoupling execution from consensus is at the heart of our scalability improvements. Decoupled execution means that it can be parallelized, optimized, sharded independently of the consensus process. The main thing decoupled execution brings is relieving the farmers of the burdens of compute. It improves the efficiency and the throughput of the consensus chain, and it allows us to keep the consensus as lightweight as permissionless for farmers, removing the barriers that would exist if we would have kept the monolithic system. So separating these layers also ensures that we can upgrade and evolve individual components without compromising the system's integrity. So this is a paradigm that's coming more to the blockchain designs, but still not as widespread as it probably should be. So domains are run by operators, and here they come. Operators have to pledge they're more powerful usually than that of farmers' hardware and stake to execute on domains. For the hardware and the stake that they pledge, they are incentivized through execution fees, which you can imagine like gas fees on Ethereum. So those are based on the amount of compute executing a transaction or like a contract call takes, which is different from transaction fees that take space on the consensus chain. Operators will be able in the future to choose any infrastructure that they think will meet the performance and cost requirements to run particular domains. But in documentation, we'll provide the reference requirements to get started. However, we again are always open for the community to give us the actual whatever has worked for them best for computation, and the benchmarks are still one of the goals of this incentivized testnet, to give a wider image of what people are running and how that is working for them. In theory and in practice, how the protocol is built, the domains can support whatever state transition framework can be there, and they are agnostic to the execution environment. But to give a head start to all of this thing and give it moving, we have already launched the Ethereum virtual machine compatible domain that we call Nova, and will support running Ethereum smart contracts and executing transactions and calls compatible with EVM. It will allow dApps and DeFi protocols to build on Subspace, and with the higher throughput and lower costs and improved scalability. I could step a little more on what is exactly the flow of the data through the consensus chain and domains, but I will not really delve into technical details because I can take the whole hour talking about this. So I will just take this moment to advertise when you can learn all of that. We have recently released, already mentioned by Jim, and Easter egged in some forum posts, the Subnomicon, which is the definitive source of knowledge about Subspace protocol. You can find it online at subnomicon.subspace.network. You can refer to it for information on how domains work, how operators and transactions work under the hood. You can also find there the full architecture, the consensus details, the roles of different nodes, what are their responsibilities, what are the reason behind the protocol designs decision that we have made, and all of that. The Subnomicon is accompanied by a growing collection of diagrams to make it more clear visually. I know it's harder to imagine when somebody's just speaking about it. It is meant to reflect, and I want to emphasize on that, the current state of the protocol. So the Subnomicon is the source of knowledge of what Subspace is now. It is not reflecting our ideal vision of what Subspace will be at the end of its evolution, which, I mean, I hope there will never be end of the evolution of Subspace. But the Subnomicon is supposed to reflect the current state. It will continue to evolve as the network develops. I'll be gradually updating it. And I also encourage all of the readers to provide feedback and ask questions so we can add more context and add more detail or clarify some things. Subnomicon is also open source. It's under our Subspace GitHub repository, subspace/Subnomicon. You are free to also do contributions. If there are typos, raise issues, ask questions, they will be addressed. Not going to take a lot more of your time. Let's just continue to advance and understand and grow the adoption of Subspace together. And I will pass it over back to Jim.
Thanks, Daria. Hopefully everyone's got an understanding now of why we're all here, what Stake War's about. We're introducing execution. And one of the points that Daria just mentioned, I'd just like to pull it out and highlight it, is that when we're talking about staking with Subspace, it's purely a feature of the decoupled execution side of things. You don't have to buy coins to become a farmer, and a farmer is a way to generate coins. So I know that we've had some questions from the community about, does staking mean there's a barrier to entry? Absolutely not. It's designed to run on the hardware you have around you, and you don't need to buy tokens up front to participate. Also, I want to talk about the Subnomicon. I've dropped the link in the chat there. It's a wonderful, wonderful resource. Everyone will learn something from it, I'm sure. If you want to really really the nuts and bolts and understand how the protocol works, it's a great resource. And it's actually, I always plug the docs contest, of course. It is contributions would qualify for the docs contest, which I'll find the link while Nazar is speaking, because I'm going to introduce our rockstar head of protocol engineering. I think the website is probably out of date. It just says founder Nazar, but Nazar is going to talk to us on Gemini 3F and Gemini 3G, and some information about their differences. And actually, Nazar, I believe are you gonna run the transactions to switch incentivized testnet rewards from 3F to 3G on the call?
Maybe. We'll try. Hey everyone. Kind of nervous today. I'm not sure why. I've been on many of these calls. So first of all, state of the network, what we have with Gemini 3 F and G. F is approaching its end. Today we'll switch to incentivization on 3G instead. 3G is running. It seems to be more alive than that, which is always nice to see. I see there are a few hundred people already on it. Thanks to everyone who was jumping early, trying to create their plots as soon as possible and submitting some of the feedback. There are some known issues on the network. There are some not so known issues. So you might see some networking warnings. Those are not critical. We're still looking into them, but they shouldn't break anything. The only thing we know right now is sometimes when you start a node, it will just get stuck in the sync process. Please give it some time. But if you don't see any sync progress within 30 minutes, after 30 minutes, please just restart it. With high probability, it should start syncing. But we're still looking into what's causing that. I'm sure we will figure it out and fix with a new release in a few days. Otherwise, a lot of people seem to have synced successfully, and there should be no problems there as far as we can see so far. But feedback is always appreciated. In terms of the space pledge, we already have well over 100 terabytes of space pledged. I know many people are still plotting. The reason for that is the first difference between Gemini 3F and 3G. Plotting has become much harder. The reason for that is security. I know some people were asking on Discord and the forum why we need to do that. Security is the primary concern for the blockchain, so we have to do that. And in particular, there is a Chia proof of space component within Subspace protocol. It's not used for the same purpose, but it is like kind of there as a primitive. And there is a parameter K there, I'm sure you're familiar, that was increased from 17 to 20. Every time we increase it by 1, it doubles. So essentially, that particular part of the plotting process has become 8 times more computationally intensive. Thanks to some optimizations elsewhere in the protocol, the plotting time will not be 8 times slower, but it will be somewhere between 4 and 8 times slower. Which sounds like a bad thing for user experience, but I have good news for you. Good news is that we are engaging with a team that is very highly specialized in high performance implementations of protocols, and we kind of kickstarted the work on GPU plotting implementation. So at some point in the not so distant future, hopefully you'll be able to plot with your GPUs a little bit faster than you can do on CPUs right now. It's TBD when it will be ready and how much improvement that will be. But from Chia news, we know that it should be possible and it should be faster and more efficient. That is kind of the future. Patience is all you need right now for the plotting process. The other major change in the Gemini 3G on the very high level is introduction of a new role. We were talking about farmers and operators a lot before. There is actually a third role, which is non-incentivized, but still crucial, called timekeeper. Timekeeper is a role that basically dedicates one of the CPU cores, and it better be a very fast CPU core. So for that, we are using latest Intel generation overclocked. That will run an algorithm called proof of time. We are using AES-128 as a primitive there. It basically runs it in a loop as fast as possible to prove that a certain amount of time has passed in physical real world. That thing actually fixes some problems in the protocol. You would be able to attack the protocol with less than 50% of space using long range attack if you didn't have proof of time in the protocol. Now it's not possible, but also timekeepers are actually a source of time on the protocol. So every second you have a puzzle and you try to solve, that's where those seconds come from now. Previously, it was just local time. After Gemini 3G, it is actually coming from timekeepers. So in short, if there are no timekeepers on the network, there is no time, no one can farm. So we need to have timekeepers, and we encourage community members who have a fast processor, modern processor, something like 13900, K, KF, KS, or 4900. Please consider running timekeeper. We either have or should have soon documentation about how to do that. And you will help to secure and decentralize the network. On the lower level, there are some changes in behavior by default on the farmer side, comparing to what you might be familiar with. For example, in the past, there was kind of a race between plotting and cache population initially when you start the node. And then there was a competition between plotting and farming. They both compete for CPU resources, or you're plotting slowly and then you're not farming very successfully. We kind of changed the order of things a little bit. So the way it works right now is when you start a farmer, it will try to populate cache locally. For small network initially, that means that once you have that cache populated, your plotting will not really reach to the network. In most cases, it will reach locally and will have a 100% cache hit, which means the plotting will be faster. And farming actually is delayed by default after initial plotting has finished. So replotting and farming can happen at the same time, but you will have to plot the whole thing start to end initially before you will start farming. That way you will plot as fast as possible, and then you will farm as efficiently as possible. If you're adventurous, you can still specify a parameter, and you can do both at the same time, but it's not recommended, just not efficient to do so. So those are important behaviors. And I would like to emphasize that we have done a bunch of other optimizations and tweaks. There are some new CLI options on the farmer if you can want to tinker with that. But my recommendation would be to kind of unlearn what you have learned from the Gemini 3F and try to start with the recommended parameters on our docs. There are some subtle differences, so I would just recommend to go to docs, copy the recommended instructions from there and start. And if you have some issues or you want to try to optimize something, go from there rather than trying to adjust 3F to 3G, because in some cases it will still work, but it will be just less efficient. One of the things you might have learned from 3F is that you can start two farmers and you can plot at the same time. It will be faster. Actually, it will be slower on 3G and actually by a lot. It will appear as CPU is used more heavily, but in practice, if you actually measure the time it takes you to plot one sector, it will be actually longer. So many optimizations like that should just work out of the box without any additional effort from your end. And I hope that everyone will have a successful farming experience. And any difficulties you might have, please post them in the farmer chat on Discord or on the forum, and we'll try to address them as soon as we can. I think in terms of the updates, that's all I have. Now I will start the transition. I think we'll first need to finish the incentivized phase on our Gemini 3F. I will try to submit an extrinsic, actually.
So I don't want to have the mounting pressure of everyone peering over your shoulder, Nazar. So
No, that's
you
fine.
actually you've oh okay. If you want to, we're going to do it live. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah. I'll try to do it live, and I'll also post a link here. Okay. So let's see. The transaction went through. I think it should. Yeah. I see. So the transaction, yeah. So here is the block with the transaction. And this is basically the last block at which Gemini 3F is incentivized. For the record, it is block 1,135,039. And now we will start the transition of Gemini 3G into incentivized phase. That we actually do two transactions. We will both enable rewards, and we will actually also allow balance transfers. Not balance transfers. We need. I see.
Enable rewards.
Yeah, there should be also a transaction to enable storage access. I think we'll look into it later. Okay. Submit and submit. All right. And here is the transaction on Gemini 3G that should enable rewards. And I already see some balances increasing for the lucky first farmers. Enables start after this block, I think the next block afterward. So first block with Gemini 3G rewards. Okay, we're live, everyone.
Wonderful. That's great. So I wonder who else on the stage here was holding their breath just then. My heart's actually racing, which is annoying because I speak next. But yeah, okay. So for anyone who's not 100% clear on what just happened, we have an ongoing incentivized testnet, which is planned to run from I should have this figure, but it's been running for a number of weeks already, and we're planning on running it for we guess, or we estimate, around 24 weeks altogether. And the rewards for the ongoing incentivized testnet, the rewards pool grow by 0.1% of total token supply each week. So what we've just done is we've stopped the kind of accrual of incentivized testnet rewards on 3F and moved them over to 3G. So anyone who was who's just purely interested in incentivized testnet rewards, I'm guessing there's a couple in the audience. It's probably entirely safe now for you to close down your 3F operation if you want to, and maybe you want to allocate that space and those resources over to 3G, because of course now Nazar, who I fluffed your title. It's actually serial consensus reimplementer, I think you have in your title, don't you, Nazar?
I think I deserve it.
I think you do as well. Yeah, so as Nazar has just enabled rewards, what that means is that up until this point, 3G, you've been plotting, maybe even been farming as well. But what hasn't been happening is you haven't been accumulating any TSSC in your wallets. Whereas now that's changed, because of course the block rewards and the vote rewards that you're earning from farming, you're going to start accruing those TSSC in your wallets, which can be used if you want to take part in stake wars. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we usher in our next chapter with stake wars, it's essential to understand the journey we're about to embark on, a journey structured into distinct phases, each with its own set of opportunities and considerations for operators and nominators. Phase 0, where we started the day, dubbed Orbit, is where, as we said, we started the day. It marks the genesis of Gemini 3G. It's the quiet before the storm, a period where decisions made are as crucial as the actions that follow. For farmers, a dilemma presented itself: to continue on the incentivized path of Gemini 3F, or to pivot to the new frontier that is Gemini 3G. For operators, it's a time of preparation. For while you may not yet enter the fray, understanding the lay of the land is paramount. The Nova domain comes into play here, initially reserved for the Genesis operator, setting a controlled stage for what's to come. With Phase 1, Planetfall, we have just witnessed the end of incentivized rewards on Gemini 3F and the commencement of rewards on Gemini 3G. This is the moment for operators to act swiftly, ensuring they are up and plotting sectors to build the stake required to register their operator node. This phase is pivotal for operators as it sets the tempo for their role in the ecosystem. with the spotlight on how quickly and efficiently they can adapt to the changing landscape. Remember that the greater the stake you can pledge, the greater the chance you will have to be selected as a bundle producer and therefore earn those transaction fees that Daria was talking about earlier. It is the transaction fees earned that will be used by the team to measure your success and calculate how much of the reward pool you will be allocated in Stake Wars. Transitioning to phase 2 to come. We're currently in phase 1. That's what Nazar has just activated. Transitioning to phase 2, base building, we open the gates for all operators. This is currently our intent is currently to open those gates in around 14 days from now. We need to make sure that everything's working as we expect it to. But registration will kick off and operators begin the hands-on work of executing transactions within the Nova domain. Yet, the game is not in full swing. Nominators are still on the sidelines, keenly observing the operators, strategizing on whom to back. For operators, the contest begins, and it's their time to demonstrate reliability and efficiency, earning transaction fees and attracting future nominators. And I'd like to take time here just to note that the incentivized testnet rewards, they're not measured by wallet balances. Instead, they're calculated based on the block and vote rewards a farmer earns. The fact that they result in TSSC accumulating in your wallet is incidental to the main incentivized testnet. This means balances can be transferred without any concern that you would be giving up anything earned from the 0.1% of token supply that is accumulating in the separate rewards pool. This introduces an interesting dynamic as token transfers will be enabled for the first time on any of our test nets. I'm interested to see what happens. Moving into phase 3, harvesting resources, is where our nominators join the action. With the enablement of nomination with a domain runtime upgrade, the playing field will be set. Nominators are now pivotal in amplifying an operator's stake, and operators are incentivized to attract and retain the confidence of their nominators. The symbiosis between the two roles becomes evident here, as both stand to gain from the success of the operator's transaction fee earnings. Finally, phase 4, the end game, is where we end the battle and tally the results. It is the culmination of all efforts, where transaction fees cease to count towards the reward pool. The focus shifts from competition to collaboration as we enter an extended phase of cooperation on our testnet. It's an opportunity for operators and nominators to experiment and refine their strategies with an eye on the long-term horizon of the mainnet beta launch. For operators, the entire cycle of Stake Wars is a test of adaptability, strategic planning, and execution prowess. It's a time to establish reputations and demonstrate capabilities. For nominators, it's an exercise in judgment and alliance building, choosing those operators who not only perform, but align with their expectations and investment philosophy. As we proceed through these phases, we're not just building a network. We're creating an ecosystem of trust and performance. We're crafting a narrative where each participant, be it an operator or a nominator, becomes a foundational stone in the grand edifice of Subspace. Let us remember, the essence of Stake Wars isn't merely in the competition or the reward. It's about readiness, about forging a community that's robust, resilient, and responsive. It's about preparing ourselves for a future where decentralized storage and execution are not just concepts, but a tangible reality we all have a stake in. And with that vision in mind, everyone, let us step forward into Stake Wars with determination and a collaborative spirit, ready to embrace the challenges and the triumphs that lie ahead. I don't think I'm understating our Stake Wars competition with that slightly prosaic, rundown of what we've got in store. It's super exciting time for the team. We've been working on Stake Wars for a while now, and I'm just super excited to have you all join. Hopefully everyone hasn't just run off the call to go and check their balances, but I for one will be checking my farmer after the call, and checking out what hardware I'm likely to allocate to Stake Wars, which is a great segue actually into bringing Jeremy, our CTO, onto the stage, who's very kindly going to take us through the nuts and bolts of how we become an operator or a nominator. Jeremy, how are you doing?
Great. Like Nazar, I'm also nervous speaking in front of the group here, but I always am, unlike Nazar. So, all right. So I guess I'll just give a quick overview of kind of the steps to or what you need to do to run an operator and to become a nominator. I'm not going to go into great detail. We have documentation on how to do this. Actually, Jim, would you mind posting a link to that?
Of course.
But I'll give a high-level overview and kind of go over what we're doing to improve this process over the next few weeks. So first, to run an operator, you need to have an operator key. There's a few extra steps here compared to running a farmer or doing other things within the network. So first thing you need to do is produce an operator key. You can do that actually with a subcommand within the Subspace node. That operator key will then have a public key that you need to use to register your operator on chain. So you can currently do that via Polkadot.js Explorer, though we'll talk about in a minute that we're going to be improving that UX. Once you've registered, you'll need to then be running an operator node, which is actually done with just adding a few arguments to the Subspace node command. Then soon this will be part of Pulsar as well. One thing to note is for now, you have to sync as an operator node from Genesis. You can't convert an already synced node to be an operator, but we'll be working also on improving that workflow in the future. Once you've got the operator up and running and you've properly registered your key, you should then start getting elected to produce bundles and earn the rewards from execution. So it's a few extra steps, but I don't think it's overly burdensome. But if that does seem a little bit daunting, you can also participate by becoming a nominator, which actually just requires you choosing an operator, submitting one transaction, and participating in the whole execution process with your stake. We are working diligently to make this user experience more refined, and currently that means we're building our own staking interface, and eventually we'll have a nice dashboard as well. This is in the very, very, very early stages of development, which makes Mark very, very, very brave to be doing a live demo of what it looks like right now, as we all know how live software demos tend to go, especially in the early stages of development. So I guess with that, Jim, should we hand over to Mark?
Absolutely. Now you've built the tension up to fever pitch there, Jeremy. Yeah, so live demos of experimental software. Right, we're going to be kind to Mark. Mark is a recent addition to the team, but a great guy. Mark, are you able to? I was hoping you'd be able to do a screen share maybe and demonstrate the staking interface. Thanks, Jeremy, by the way.
Yeah, totally. So you should see my screen now. Thank you for the warning, Jeremy. So here's the first draft of this staking interface. The first step is to connect your wallet. So you have here the links to the documentation on how to be an operator. And let's connect our wallet. We'll support for now Polkadot.js and Subwallet. So I'm going to connect my Subwallet. And here, so I have a few wallets in my Subwallet, so I can select the actual one I want to use. And so here we register as an operator, so we'll select the domain ID that we're using, the minimum nominator stake. So for each nominator, the minimum stakes that they need to give to you as an operator to stake with you. The amount to stake that you will stake, and the nomination tax. So when nominators select you as an operators, how much profits basically you will keep, and the signing key that you have as an operator. So I already filled that up earlier when I was testing it. And next, you will be signing a transaction. As Jeremy mentioned it, everything can also just be done directly on Polka.js, but this makes it a bit more easier to use. And here you will see your the list of your operators' registrations, the total that you have stake, total you have available to be withdraw, and you can add funds or initiate withdraw with the same concept. You'll be signing a transaction. There's improvement to be done. We'll definitely improve this interface over the next few days, but that's pretty much all that there is for now.
That's great. Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so our focus has been purely. Sorry, Mark. Mark, have you finished there? Do you have more
Yes.
to show? Okay. Yeah, our focus has been purely on protocol implementation, as you may expect. We've got a very aggressive target to launch mainnet beta in February, as we announced recently in our When Subspace blog post. So we're heads down on the core features. The bells and whistles have not been getting a great, a fair shake of the stick up to now. But Mark has really pulled out the stops there when I asked if he'd be able to demo the staking interface on Monday. I asked if he could do it today on Thursday. Yeah, he was confident. So I'm not sure what state it was in there, but great demo. Thanks, Mark. It's really coming together. Okay, right. So I'm looking for questions from the audience. We've dropped a bunch of knowledge, and I refuse to believe that everyone is just here to see the switch of 3F to 3G. Do we have some questions from the audience about? Well, we can take questions about the points that Nazar spoke on about how 3G is different to 3F. But I'm also really keen to hear any queries that you have around execution, being an operator, being a nominator. Is anything not clear? So I'm going to start going through the chat here. If anyone else up on the stage wants to chip in with a question they've seen, I've been trying to pull them out as we go along. Okay, so I'm going to launch straight in. So quite far up the chat now. Jan from Synergy Lounge, will there be more steps after 3G? Now, I'm going to assume some context here. You're asking, will there be a 3H? And I can say pretty confidently that there will be a 3H. This is our test net. We expect things to break. Basically, we may end up with some problem that we have to unexpectedly release a new network with maybe not so many features as we'd hoped, but certainly we still need to implement more features between now and mainnet beta, and as those drop into place, as we get closer to code complete, you'll see another iteration of the network, I'm sure. Okay. Nerna F, one of our ambassadors. What is the average plot time of a sector currently? So I see we've got some suggestions from the audience. So the SIC has said 8 minutes for an AMD 5800X3D. Lost Chenji has chimed in with 5800X 5 minutes, a 7950X for 2.5 minutes. Wow, I wish I were able to plot that quickly. Again, anecdotally, I can tell you that my old generation i7 is plotting around 11 or 12 minutes. So for context, I was doing about 4 minutes on 3F. And just, you know, to add some color there as well, is that the early builds of what's become 3F, when we were running them on DevNet, I was getting exactly 8 times. So I was taking 30 minutes to plot a sector. So it's testament to the great work Nazar and the engineers have done with introducing optimizations to take that down from 8 times to, for me, it's a 3 times, but 2.5 minutes. My goodness. I wonder what you're doing on 3F, Los Chenji. Maybe you can follow up in the chat. So hopefully that explains Naneth. I mean, really, there isn't a flat time. But what I can say is that we are super interested to hear about your experiences. Post them in Discord. You know, Farmer Chat is a great place where everyone congregates and talks about exactly these things. How is your rig doing? You know, how many tokens are you earning per terabyte per day? All those really interesting questions that farmers want to ask. Okay, scrolling down. Okay, do we need to restart node of farmer to get signed reward hash from Jack? No, it should just happen. So, as Nazar mentioned, one of the changes between 3F and 3G is that the 3G software will wait until you are fully plotted before farming. So you won't earn rewards until you are farming. So that is a feature, so that the plotting process happens as efficiently as possible. You don't have contention between farming and plotting on your resources. So you can actually override that behavior. There's a flag, there's a forum post I'm going to find in a sec and drop into the chat. I believe it's it's something initial plotting. Let me just see if I can find it quickly.
Jonathan already posted in the chat.
Oh, thank you, Nazar. I'm too far up. Got my back there. Yeah, so you can override that behavior, but at your own peril, because you won't be plotting as efficiently as you can be. Maybe what you want to do is pop into your farmer after the call, like some of us may go off and do, and reduce your plot size to the number of sectors that you plotted. So we're talking about roughly 1 gigabyte per sector. So there's a balance to be struck. You know, we're interested to hear how our farmers approach this problem. But ultimately, no, you don't need to restart the node or farmer. You may want to reconfigure slightly to make sure, unless if you're fully plotted already, then no, you don't need to do anything. Sit back and enjoy the cascade of rewards that you're no doubt experiencing. But otherwise, no, you don't have to restart. Jack, thanks for the
One
question.
thing that users might notice if farm during initial plotting is specified, you will likely see timeouts. So node and farmer will complain that they were not able to do something in time and it was ignored. Basically means that plotting process is so heavy that you are not able to farm. So you are wasting resources on farming and you're still not making it in time. So it's just like wasting time and making plotting slower for no reason. So if you see that, just remove that parameter. It is not the default for a reason.
Okay, so if you see that you're not providing solutions fast enough, and you've added that flag to override the behavior, then you should certainly consider switching back round, because you're not being as efficient as possible with your farming, if I understand correctly there. Okay, Animu, do we need to delete all plot farm? Okay, so I assume, again, dangerously, that you're talking about are 3F and 3G plots compatible? And the simple answer is no, they're not. They're different networks, they're different software, they behave completely differently. So as I said earlier, you may have been in, up to this point, phase 0 while 3G was live, but rewards were not activated on 3G, they were still on 3F. You may have decided to strike a balance between the resources you're allocating to each network. But now is probably the time for you, unless you've got an interest in keeping 3F going. Maybe you're testing on it or something. Now is the time to delete your old 3F plots and allocate those resources over to 3G. Okay, thanks for the question, Animu. Okay, Dizel, reward incentive 3G enabled. Absolutely, 100%, sir. Yes, live and direct on the call. Okay. Now you're going to have to bear with me umming and ahhing for a second while I try and work out if we've got any more questions. Ah, the 6th. You do you want to come up on stage and ask a question? Okay, maybe that was an outdated request. I have invited you up. Okay, Fireball 1 from Node Soda. We are incentivized to accumulate rewards as nominators because that will lead our operator to earn more blocks, thus more rewards. Correct. Yes. So you may be familiar with this idea of nominated proof of stake from other protocols. So essentially, you're backing a horse, if you like, in the race. As you, it's not entirely, but as you increase the nomination, you add your nominated stake to the operator's stake, you're increasing the power of the operator, because the more total stake the operator has, the more likely they are to produce a bundle and earn transaction fees. So yes, is the short answer. Fireball 1. Same guy. Also, will there be a detailed release and instructions for each phase? Understand from the talk that phase 12, I think you meant 2 there, is about generating stake and stabilizing the node. Is that correct? So yeah, I mean, there's a forum post that describes what each phase is about. If anything is not clear, please do hit me on Discord, because I can update it. But yeah, so today we have we've migrated from phase 0, which was 3G is enabled, and while we check its stability, no rewards are enabled. We've migrated to phase 1 today, which is all about anyone who wants to become an operator is now able to start farming TSSC, which is what you need to be able to run the transaction, to register your operator online later on when we activate phase 2. So right now, the thing you need to concentrate on is farming and accumulating that stake. Phase 2 we'll give you plenty of notice. The instructions that we dropped in the chat earlier in Jeremy's on Jeremy's talk on how to run those transactions. Mark's interface streamlines that process. That will be the next action for operators. Let me know if that doesn't quite nail your question, Fireball 1. How to prevent everyone from staking on the same operator, which ruins decentralization.
I can answer that.
Go ahead, Nazar, please do.
That's an interesting question. Basically, you need to understand that an operator, comparing to nominator, is able to collect tax from nominations. So if you have a lot of coins, or a significant amount of coins, you are actually more incentivized to run your own operator and earn that tax yourself rather than giving it away to someone. In addition to like just voluntarily try to help decentralization, you're actually economically incentivized to run an operator yourself. So we expect that there will be many operators that would be kind of independent, but then smaller those who have a smaller number of coins will just nominate someone, or if they're lazy and don't want to maintain a node, that is an option for nomination. So there is a place for both of those roles, and doesn't necessarily mean that there will be just one huge operator and everyone will nominate them. And
Absolutely.
actually, you can pull the coins together. So like you can have a friend and you can come together and run an operator together. That's also totally possible.
Absolutely. With the advent of transfers being enabled on 3G for the first time ever on one of our incentivized test nets, there's an interesting new dynamic. Farmers could pull together, maybe some friends could collect their coins together, and fund an operator if they wanted to. Also, you could get political about it. You could canvass the farmer community. Of course, we have our operators nominators channel in Discord where we expect those conversations to happen. If you're a known, if you're a face, maybe in the kind of validating or execution space, then it's definitely time to think about an advertising campaign.
I also wanted to add to that, if you allow me. So right now we're only having the EVM domain is like right now the only one up for testing, but the domain framework and the coupled execution is designed in a way to allow flexibility. So if you are like a sole developer, you want to run a domain like for your own, or have a private domain where you just let certain operators run on, you could totally do that. So it's, decentralization is good on our consensus chain, is good on big domains like EVM, but you could totally have domains where that is not a question.
Absolutely, a feature of the protocol, of course, is that we support. There's no limit to the number of domains we can support, and there is an interesting balance there as well, because market forces should pull operators from one domain to another domain automatically. So there'll be this balancing dynamic that goes on, the market forces there. Thanks, Daria, for jumping in there. Okay, hyperthreading. I think, yeah, Nazar's kindly answered that. Okay. Thanks for that question, Mal. It was a great question, by the way. Another one of our ambassadors. Okay, right. Well, we're drawing to the end of the top of the hour now, everyone, and I see the questions are drying up. Some great, really interesting questions there. So, as our time together draws to a close, I want to take a moment to extend my deepest gratitude to each and every one of you for joining us today. Your participation is not just appreciated; it's essential. It's the combined effort and shared vision of this community that propels us forward in the remarkable journey of Stake Wars. In the vastness of the cosmos, every single star contributes to the brilliance of the galaxy. Similarly, each operator, each nominator, and every community member amplifies the strength and potential of the Subspace network. Your questions, insights, and enthusiasm have not only enriched today's conversation, but have also reinforced the spirit of collaboration that is the cornerstone of our mission. As we sign off, I encourage you to reflect on the shared experiences and the wealth of knowledge we've exchanged. Let these be the guiding stars as we navigate the phases of Stake Wars. Remember, the discussions we've had and the connections we've forged here are just the beginning. Stay engaged, stay curious, and most importantly, stay connected. The community channels remain open, and your contributions to these forums are invaluable. Our Discord channels are always abuzz with activity, and we encourage you to keep the dialogue going there. The synergy of this community is our greatest asset as we push the boundaries of decentralized execution and build a network that's truly by the people, for the people. Until we meet again, keep plotting your sectors and farming your stake. Keep strategizing your nominations and keep building this network with the same passion and dedication you've shown today. From the core of our digital cosmos to the farthest reaches of our network, thank you for making today's call nothing short of stellar. Here's to the journey ahead, and here's to each of you who make it possible. Safe travels through the subspace, and until next time, keep reaching for the stars. Thanks, everyone.